The story begins with an image that feels frozen in time. A dusty barn standing quietly at the edge of a small rural town, its wooden doors sealed for decades. The Johnson family, gathered on a cool autumn afternoon, had no idea that opening those doors would lead to a discovery that blended nostalgia, history, and raw emotion. When the rusty lock finally gave way, sunlight pierced the darkness, illuminating the unmistakable silhouette of a vehicle covered in a thick blanket of dust. At first, it seemed almost ordinary, another relic of forgotten days. But as the dust cleared, the truth revealed itself. Sitting in perfect stillness was their grandmother's 1975 Chevrolet truck, untouched since the day she parked it. The chrome trim, though dulled by time, gleamed faintly under the streaming light. A faint smell of leather and old oil lingered in the air, pulling everyone backward in time. For the family, this wasn't just a truck. It was a capsule of their grandmother's resilience, independence, and the life she had built with her own hands. The moment sparked both awe and questions. Why had she left it untouched? What stories lingered in its silence? The barn had guarded a secret, and now it was finally ready to speak. The Johnson family quickly gathered around the truck, their voices overlapping with excitement, disbelief, and wonder. Mark, the eldest son, ran his hand along the faded paint, whispering how he remembered sitting in the passenger seat as a child. Sarah, his younger sister, reached for the steering wheel, marveling at how solid and unyielding it felt compared to modern cars. Their mother, Linda, stood silently for a moment, her eyes misting as memories of her own childhood resurfaced. She recalled her mother driving that truck down dirt roads, hauling hay and transporting tools, always insisting on handling the work herself. The barn had preserved more than a vehicle. It had preserved a piece of character and determination that defined their grandmother. Yet, along with the warm memories, there was an undercurrent of mystery. Why had their grandmother locked it away without explanation? Neighbors had spoken of her fierce independence, but never mentioned the truck's disappearance from daily use. As the family examined the glove compartment, seat cushions, and worn dashboard, a quiet tension began to grow. They weren't just looking at metal and leather. They were staring at a puzzle their grandmother had left behind. And with every passing second, the urge to uncover her reasons grew stronger. The discovery of the 1975 Chevy truck quickly turned into a family project. While at first they admired it as a relic, the longer they stood around it, the more they felt an invisible pull to bring it back to life. Mark suggested carefully moving it out of the barn, but Linda insisted they take things slow. Dust still clung to the windows, and spiderwebs draped the mirrors like veils guarding a secret. Sarah found herself running her fingers across the hood, tracing the faded Chevrolet emblem as if it could whisper forgotten stories. When they opened the driver's door, a creak echoed through the barn, releasing a smell of leather mixed with years of silence. On the seat rested a small crocheted blanket, folded neatly as though placed there yesterday. Linda's breath caught. This was hers, she murmured, touching the yarn. For her, the blanket transformed the truck into something more intimate, a sanctuary where her mother had once retreated. Mark inspected under the seat and discovered an old keyring with 2 rusted keys. One clearly belonged to the truck, but the other was unfamiliar. He held it up, puzzled, and immediately the family began speculating. Could it open a hidden box, a drawer in the house, or perhaps another secret waiting nearby? The unanswered question hung heavy in the air. Later that evening, as the family sat in the kitchen, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. They shared fragments of stories about their grandmother, how she often worked late into the night, how she avoided speaking about her past, and how she occasionally disappeared for hours without explanation. Sarah wondered aloud if the truck had been connected to those unexplained absences. Linda, though reluctant, admitted there were gaps in her mother's life she never dared to question. The mystery surrounding the unused truck began to transform into something greater than curiosity. It became a call to action. They weren't only restoring a vehicle, they were piecing together a history that might reveal truths about their grandmother's private world. Each clue felt like a breadcrumb left intentionally, waiting for them to follow. And though the family carried different perspectives, Mark with his eagerness, Sarah with her wonder, and Linda with her caution, they all felt united by the unspoken belief that answers lay hidden within the truck's story. The next morning, Mark returned to the barn armed with tools, determined to see if the truck would start. The others followed reluctantly, unsure whether disturbing the vehicle too much would damage what their grandmother had left behind. After brushing away layers of dust from the dashboard, Mark slid the old key into the ignition. To everyone's shock, the engine groaned, coughed, and then, after decades of silence, roared faintly to life. The sound filled the barn like a ghost awakening, vibrating against the wooden walls. Sarah covered her mouth in disbelief, and Linda felt tears prick her eyes. Their grandmother had left the truck in working order, almost as though she had planned for it to be found and used again. As the rumble steadied, Sarah noticed something wedged in the glove compartment. She tugged, and with a sharp pull, a small leather-bound journal slid out, coated with dust. Its cover bore their grandmother's initials, and when Linda opened it, the faded handwriting spilled across the pages in delicate cursive. The journal wasn't just filled with daily notes. It contained entries about trips she had taken, places she had visited, and cryptic mentions of unfinished business. One particular entry stopped Linda cold. It described a night in 1978 when their grandmother wrote about meeting someone secretly and hiding something valuable where no one would think to look. Her words hinted at secrecy, sacrifice, and choices that she never explained. The key Mark had found suddenly gained new importance. Could it unlock whatever she was referring to? The family exchanged uneasy glances. The mystery had escalated from a forgotten truck to something much deeper. Secret life their grandmother might have lived. Linda's voice trembled as she whispered. She wasn't just hiding a vehicle. She was hiding part of herself. For the first time, the truck wasn't simply a symbol of nostalgia. It became a doorway to untold stories. The family realized they were at the beginning of a much larger journey. The discovery of the journal left the Johnson family restless. That evening, they gathered in the living room with the book placed carefully on the table, its cracked leather cover drawing everyone's attention. Linda hesitated before turning the pages again, her hands trembling slightly as if touching the fragile paper might disturb the spirit of her mother. Sarah leaned forward eagerly, her curiosity outweighing her fear, while Mark paced the room, his mind racing with possibilities. The entries painted a picture none of them expected. Their grandmother, known in town as a hard-working farmer and devoted mother, described moments of solitude, late-night drives, and secret meetings in distant towns. Some passages hinted at financial struggles she never revealed, while others mentioned people whose names meant nothing to the family. Sarah found it thrilling, imagining her grandmother as a woman who had lived a double life. Linda, however, felt conflicted. To her, these revelations chipped away at the stable, dependable figure she had relied upon. "Why didn't she tell us?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Mark tried to reassure her. Maybe she wanted to protect us, or maybe she planned to explain someday. Yet his words didn't erase the unease in the room. Every new page raised more questions than answers. When they reached the entry about hiding something valuable, the family fell silent. The phrase lingered like smoke, impossible to ignore. The rusted key suddenly became the center of their focus. Mark suggested searching the barn more thoroughly, while Sarah proposed looking through the old farmhouse for hidden compartments. Linda resisted, torn between wanting answers and fearing what they might uncover. Still, the sense of duty grew heavier. Their grandmother hadn't destroyed the journal. She had preserved it, perhaps deliberately. That thought shifted their perspective. What if she wanted them to find it? What if the discovery of the truck and the journal was part of a plan she had crafted long ago? As the night deepened, the three agreed reluctantly to continue their search the next day. Each carried their own emotions, Mark with determination, Sarah with excitement, and Linda with dread. The ordinary life they thought they knew was unraveling, and they realized they could no longer look at their grandmother's legacy in the same way. The following morning, the Johnson family split into tasks, each pursuing a different lead. Mark returned to the barn, determined to examine every inch of the structure for hidden spaces. He tapped along the wooden walls and floorboards, convinced the mysterious key must fit something nearby. Meanwhile, Sarah searched the farmhouse attic, digging through dusty boxers filled with letters, clothes, and forgotten tools. Linda, though reluctant, visited the town library, hoping to find any mention of her mother in old newspapers. Mark's investigation uncovered a metal lockbox buried beneath a loose plank in the barn floor. Though his heart raced with anticipation, the rusted lock didn't match the key. Frustrated, he carried the box inside, hoping it might connect to another clue. Sarah, on the other hand, unearthed an envelope tucked inside an old photo album. It contained faded photographs of their grandmother standing beside unfamiliar men and women, some dressed in uniforms, others in casual clothes. None of them were labeled, and the images sparked more questions than answers. At the library, Linda scrolled through microfilm reels until a headline froze her in place. Local Woman AIDS Recovery Effort, 1,978. The article described her mother assisting in a flood rescue in a nearby county, yet, curiously, the details didn't align with the stories she had been told. The article hinted at her mother traveling frequently during that time, something Linda never remembered happening. That evening, they reconvened, spreading their findings across the dining table. The lockbox, the photographs, the article all pointed to a life more complex than they had imagined. Sarah speculated that their grandmother might have been involved in community projects or even secret volunteer work, while Mark pushed the idea that it could be something larger, possibly tied to hidden money or valuables. Tension grew as Linda voiced her fear. What if the truth changes how we remember her? What if we don't like what we find? Her words hung in the air, forcing them to confront the possibility that answers might bring pain rather than closure. Still, the pull of the mystery was undeniable. The ordinary truck had opened a door to a story stretching far beyond their family's quiet farm. As the days passed, the Johnson household felt divided between excitement and unease. The lockbox sat at the center of the dining table, its weight both physical and symbolic, representing all the unanswered questions about their grandmother. Mark wanted to force it open immediately, but Linda objected, arguing that rushing might disrespect her mother's memory. Sarah, caught between them, pleaded for patience, suggesting they search for the rightful key instead of prying it apart. This disagreement exposed deeper wounds. Linda accused Mark of being reckless, of treating the mystery like an adventure without considering the emotional toll. Mark shot back that Linda was too afraid of the truth, hiding behind nostalgia rather than confronting reality. Sarah tried to mediate, but even her optimism cracked when Linda whispered, "What if she was hiding something shameful?" That thought unsettled them all. Later, in the quiet of her bedroom, Linda reread parts of the journal, hoping to find reassurance. Instead, she stumbled upon another cryptic entry about keeping promises to strangers and carrying burdens in silence. The words filled her with guilt. Had she misunderstood her mother's life entirely? She remembered arguments from her teenage years, moments when her mother disappeared overnight without explanation. Now those memories carried new meaning, and the weight of not asking questions back then pressed heavily on her heart. Meanwhile, Sarah clutched the photographs she had found in the attic. She studied the faces over and over, imagining stories for each. In her mind, their grandmother became a figure of intrigue, someone who had perhaps fought for causes beyond the family's knowledge, yet she also feared disappointment. What if the people in the pictures represented mistakes or betrayals? Mark, restless and determined, spent long nights online researching vintage Chevrolet trucks, searching for hidden compartments or common modifications from the 1970s. He grew convinced their grandmother had used the vehicle for more than farming. His obsession, however, strained his relationship with Linda, who felt he was chasing shadows at the expense of family peace. The family's bond, once simple, now felt fragile. Every discovery fueled conflict as much as curiosity. They were no longer united solely by love for their grandmother, but also by clashing interpretations of who she truly was. The search for truth had transformed into a test of loyalty, trust, and resilience, forcing them to question whether unearthing secrets was worth the risk of fracturing what remained of their unity. The following weekend, the Johnsons returned to the barn with renewed determination. Mark insisted on examining every crevice of the truck itself, convinced that it held more secrets than they had uncovered. Sarah hovered nearby, taking photographs of the interior, while Linda reluctantly kept watch, her nerves fraying with each passing minute. When Mark pried open the passenger side floor mat, his crowbar revealed a small, rusted compartment bolted beneath the metal. With trembling hands, he loosened the screws until the plate gave way. Inside lay a faded envelope, its edges brittle from age. Sarah gasped as she carefully unfolded it. Inside was several documents, bank receipts, handwritten notes, and what appeared to be a map sketched crudely on yellowed paper. The receipts, dated from 1977 to 1979, showed large cash deposits under a different name, E.M. Harris. None of them recognized the alias. The map, marked with an X, seemed to reference a location near a riverbank several miles outside of town. Linda's face paled as she realized it matched the county mentioned in the newspaper article about the flood. For the first time, their grandmother's secret life appeared undeniable. Why would she deposit money under a false identity? And what could be hidden near the river? Theories flew wildly: illegal dealings, hidden savings, or perhaps something noble like funds for people she helped. The uncertainty was suffocating. That night, Sarah spread the documents across her bedroom floor, studying them as though they were pieces of a puzzle. Mark, restless, argued they should visit the riverside immediately, while Linda resisted, fearing what they might uncover. Secrets are buried for a reason, she warned, her voice heavy. But deep down, she, too, felt the pull of the truth. Sleep came uneasily to all of them. In her dreams, Linda saw her mother driving the Chevy truck into the night, her face determined yet sorrowful, as if carrying a burden she could never share. Mark, meanwhile, lay awake, consumed by the idea that the truck was never simply transportation, it had been a vessel for hidden missions. Sarah scribbled notes in a journal of her own, determined to chronicle every discovery, as if telling her grandmother's story could one day bring peace. The barn had offered clues, but the map pointed outward, pushing the mystery beyond the farm's borders and into the unknown. The next day, the Johnsons gathered around the kitchen table once again, the map stretched out between them. Mark pressed his finger firmly against the X, insisting they needed to go to the river before anyone else discovered what might be hidden there. Sarah, though equally curious, urged caution. She suggested they research the area first, maybe even cross-reference the notes in the journal to avoid missteps. Linda, however, sat quietly, her gaze fixed on the handwriting on the map. She recognized the curves of the letters, the way her mother had always looped her H's. The familiarity tugged at her heart, but it also deepened her hesitation. Their discussion turned heated. Mark accused Linda of dragging her feet out of fear, while Linda countered that he was blinded by obsession. Sarah tried to mediate, pointing out that the conflict itself echoed their grandmother's cryptic words about burdens and silence. Perhaps she had lived a divide between duty and secrecy, just as they were now torn between curiosity and fear. The irony unsettled them all. Later, Sarah sought refuge in the attic again. She returned to the photographs of their grandmother with strangers, studying the unfamiliar faces. One picture caught her attention, a man wearing a badge on his belt. Could he have been law enforcement? If so, why would her grandmother be associated with him? Sarah speculated that perhaps the money in the receipts was tied to government aid or even undercover work. The possibility thrilled her, though it also frightened her with its implications. Meanwhile, Mark confided privately to Linda that he was struggling to reconcile his childhood memories of their grandmother with the version now emerging from the clues. He remembered her as warm, playful, and proud of her truck. But the receipts, the alias, and the hidden map painted a portrait of someone far more complex. What if we never really knew her at all? He asked quietly. Linda, unable to answer, felt the sting of regret. That night, Sarah placed the map under her pillow, convinced that dreams might bring clarity. Linda reread the journal aloud to herself, as though her mother's words could guide her through the confusion. Mark packed tools in the garage, preparing for the inevitable trip to the river. Each member of the family sought answers differently, but all paths pointed to the same destination, toward the river and toward the truth their grandmother had buried long ago. The morning of the river expedition arrived with gray skies and a biting wind, matching the tension simmering in the Johnson household. Mark loaded the Chevy truck carefully, its engine now humming steadily after their recent restoration efforts. Sarah clutched the journal and photographs, her mind racing through every detail that might guide them. Linda followed reluctantly, her heart heavy with both anticipation and fear. As they drove toward the outskirts of town, silence filled the truck, punctuated only by the occasional sigh or the crunch of tires on gravel. Mark focused on the road ahead, yet his jaw tightened with worry. What if the secrets they were chasing were dangerous? What if the discoveries would shatter their understanding of their grandmother completely? Sarah, sensing the tension, attempted to lighten the mood, pointing out landmarks and imagining stories their grandmother might have experienced. Her effort, though well-intentioned, barely softened the unease. Arriving at the riverbank, they noticed a small, weathered boathouse matching the sketch on the map. Mark led the way, crowbar in hand, while Sarah and Linda trailed behind, scanning the surroundings for anything out of place. When Mark lifted the loose boards of the boathouse floor, a faint metallic glint caught Sarah's eye. Beneath the planks lay another lockbox, smaller than the one in the barn but clearly old and secured with a rusted padlock. Linda froze, gripping the edge of the boathouse. The weight of the moment hit her the culmination of their discoveries, the secrets hinted at in the journal, and the mysterious, unfinished business their grandmother had written about. The family realized they were on the precipice of revelation, and the tension threatened to overwhelm them. Mark tried the old key, but it didn't fit. Panic flickered across his face as he imagined the lockbox remaining sealed forever. Sarah suggested they search nearby for hidden compartments or alternate locks, her hands shaken with both fear and excitement. Linda feeling both dread and resolve. suggested they consider what their grandmother might have wanted them to learn before forcing the box open. Arguments flared. Fear clashed with curiosity, and doubt threatened to fracture the family. The river, once serene and welcoming, now seemed like a stage 4 confrontation between past and present, known and unknown, safety and risk. Every choice they made could either bring them closer to the truth or push them into regret. The moment of discovery loomed palpable, and in that suspended tension, the family understood that their grandmother's secret was not merely a puzzle, it was a test of courage, trust, and unity. Tension hung thick as the Johnsons stood around the lockbox, their breaths visible in the chilly riverbank air. Mark gritted his teeth, determined to unlock the secret immediately, while Linda hesitated, gripping the journal like a lifeline. Sierra, caught between curiosity and caution, suggested they step back and reconsider the approach. The disagreement escalated quickly, voices overlapping, frustration and fear bubbling to the surface. Mark slammed the crowbar against the lockbox, and though it did not budge, the sharp sound echoed through the trees, startling birds into flight. "We can't waste time," he shouted, eyes burning with determination. "She left this for us. She wanted us to find it," Linda countered, her voice trembling, but rushing might destroy what she wanted to protect. "Maybe there's a clue we're missing." Sarah placed a hand on each of their shoulders, trying to mediate, but the raw emotions made the family nearly collide in conflict. In the midst of the argument, Sarah remembered a detail from the journal, an entry mentioning the key I never lose hidden beneath a marked stone at the river's edge. She ran to the riverbank, scanning rocks until her fingers brushed a slightly raised stone. Heart-pounding, she lifted it to reveal a small, rusted key. Returning to the lockbox, she held it out to Mark, who nearly dropped it in surprise. The key slid into the padlock, turning smoothly as if it had been waiting decades for this precise moment. The lock clicked, and the lid creaked open, revealing a collection of neatly stacked envelopes, each labeled with dates from 1977 to 1980, along with a small, leather-bound notebook. As they examined the contents, the family realized that their grandmother had saved money for each family member, documented charitable contributions, and recorded private reflections about her life's sacrifices. The hidden stash represented her care, foresight, and the untold story of resilience she had quietly maintained. For the first time, the tension shifted into awe and understanding. Mark lowered the crowbar, and Linda's tears fell freely. Sarah held the notebook close, feeling the weight of her grandmother's wisdom. Their conflicts dissolved, replaced by unity and reverence for the life they had only begun to understand. The confrontation had forced them to confront not only the mystery, but also their own fears, impatience, and misunderstandings. Each decision, each argument had prepared them to fully grasp the truth that had been patiently waiting all these years. With the lockbox finally open, the Johnson family lingered at the riverbank, the weight of discovery pressing down on them. Each envelope and notebook page revealed layers of their grandmother's life. But even as the truth emerged, a deeper tension remained. Questions about her motivations, her sacrifices, and her solitude loomed over them. Unresolved yet powerful, the river flowed quietly beside them, its gentle current contrasting sharply with the storm of emotions swirling within. Mark's hand shook slightly as he held a series of letters addressed to unknown recipients. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate, and familiar echoes of the journal entries. Each letter hinted at decisions made for the greater good, small acts of kindness or protection that had remained hidden from the family. Mark realized that the truck, the journal, and the lockbox were part of a carefully constructed Legucia way for their grandmother to communicate lessons she had never spoken aloud. Sarah, meanwhile, examined the photographs alongside the newly revealed letters. Connections began to form in her mind. The strangers in the pictures were people she now recognized from the letters, recipients of her grandmother's discreet aid. Their mother's secret life was not one of selfishness or mischief, it was one of quiet heroism, hidden to shield the family from worry or danger. Linda, standing a few steps away, struggled to reconcile her memories with these revelations. She had often judged her mother for moments of absence or silence, but now those gaps held purpose and meaning. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "She wasn't hiding from us. She was protecting us." The enormity of the truth sank in. The mystery that had seemed so daunting was in fact a testament to love, foresight, and resilience. The family shared a long, wordless moment, absorbing the culmination of decades-old secrets. Each realized that their journey had not only uncovered hidden objects and letters, but also unveiled a deeper understanding of character, courage, and empathy. The barn, the truck, the journal, the river they were all threads woven into a larger tapestry of memory and care. For the first time, the tension eased, replaced by reverence. Though questions remained, the emotional weight shifted toward gratitude and admiration. The Johnsons recognized that their grandmother's life was a story of resilience and subtle heroism, one that had been patiently waiting for them to uncover. The moment of revelation reached its peak as the Johnsons gathered around the last envelope. Inside was a heartfelt letter from their grandmother, addressed to them directly. Her words reflected love, foresight, and quiet pride, explaining why she had preserved the truck, the journal, and the lockbox. She wrote of challenges faced alone, sacrifices made to protect the family, and the lessons she hoped they would carry forward. Mark felt a surge of respect and humility, realizing that every argument and search had led them to this intimate understanding of her life. Sarah clutched the photographs and letters, tears streaming, overwhelmed by the depth of her grandmother's care and the intricate planning behind every hidden item. Linda, finally at peace, traced her mother's handwriting, feeling a connection stronger than any memory. The truck, once a simple relic, now symbolized legacy, resilience, and love. In that moment, the family understood the mystery wasn't about secrecy, it was about preparation, guidance, and an invitation to grow. The hidden treasures and cryptic journal were not puzzles, but bridges to comprehension. Together, they embraced the revelation, knowing their grandmother had trusted them to uncover her story with patience, courage, and heart. The tension, the conflicts, and the unknown all culminated in this singular, powerful moment of clarity and connection. With the river expedition behind them, the Johnson family returned home carrying not just letters and photographs, but a renewed sense of unity and admiration for their grandmother. The truck, once covered in dust, now gleamed with meaning. Every detail from its polished chrome to the leather seats served as a tangible reminder of her resilience and foresight. The journal, the lockbox, and the letters had transformed from mysteries into lessons of love, sacrifice, and careful planning. Linda, Mark, and Sarah shared reflections late into the evening, discussing how their grandmother's life inspired them to appreciate hidden acts of courage and the value of quiet dedication. They agreed to preserve the truck, not just as a vehicle, but as a family heirloom symbolizing strength and legacy. Sarah suggested compiling the photographs and journal notes into a family archive, ensuring future generations could understand the depth of their grandmother's life. The journey had changed them all, teaching patience, empathy, and the importance of embracing history with curiosity and respect. If you've enjoyed this story of discovery and hidden legacies, subscribe to the channel to uncover more mysteries from the past. Hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and watch the next video to explore another tale of family, secrets, and unexpected revelations. The adventure continues, and every story holds a lesson waiting to be discovered.